Well, hello there, everyone. Today we're going to start the actual wiring process on the RMAX. So this video is probably going to be long because there's going to be a lot of different components to it. And I'm no expert at this stuff, but I feel like I'm good enough, I guess, at doing it. So I just want to share what I know to you guys out in the internet world, because I've never really hooked up light bars or set up like bus bars and that kind of stuff. So this first part is going to be kind of an overview of things before we really get cranking, and feel free to skip around. Most people that watch videos, they jump all over the place anyway, so I'm going to make sure that there's chapters, you know, in the video, so you can kind of pick or choose what you want to learn about. That way, maybe, you know, you watch the video once and then you go to tackle it, and then you're like, oh, well, I need to know about the fuse portion, and you can click right onto that. So I'm going to start this off by saying do some research, jump on groups, forums. Don't be afraid to watch other YouTube videos to get, you know, an idea of what you want to accomplish and to get some maybe answers. You're going to also want to have a basic understanding of how some of this stuff works, and it's probably not a bad idea to have a decent multimeter, maybe a power probe, you know, basic hand tools, stripping tools, soldering iron, shrink tube. I'll put all the stuff in the bottom below, so I'll make sure that you have all of that stuff. Anyways, so let's kind of start off with what my plan is for this machine and why I'm doing what I'm doing. And we'll start with the light bar. So there will be, I actually have a video already about it, but maybe I'll put it in here where you can skip to it. It shows me installing the light bar really quick. I used EMP brackets, really nice, powder coated. They're like $52 or something like that. And this is a rigid horse. I mean, it's some Chinese brand, but it seemed to have good reviews on Amazon. And it's a single row, and it's 42-inch, and it fits good. So I've already pre-made my cables, and I'll have a spot on the video that shows about how to make your own cables. And like, here's a nice negative cable that I made with this nylon sleeve. And yeah, I have a small one. This is the trigger wire for lighting up this fuse block.
Which one? Or
bus bar. So I did install this, and I don't have a video about it. Pardon me, pal. But this basically is an automotive, or you'd probably find these in like boats and stuff. You supply a ground and a positive, and then you have all these fuses to work from. So I'll run my lighting equipment off like the 30s and maybe the smaller stuff. I just kind of filled in whatever here. But it's negative bus bar on top, and then these are the positives. So the idea is to have all the accessories hooked up to this. That way, if I need to disconnect power from it, or if I want to add stuff, I have a central location to add things. So you want to make sure that you size things accordingly depending on your load and depending on what you're going to hook up. This light bar is not going to pull a lot of amperage, so I probably shouldn't use 30s. I'll have to look at what the manufacturer recommends and make sure I have a fuse, the proper fuse in place. I just kind of threw these in here to give a visual representation of what you could do. So you're probably going to ask, all right, well, that's cool that you got that bus bar thing. How is that going to be powered, or, you know, whatever. So what I decided to make was a kind of like a module, and it has a relay on it, and it also has a breaker. So I made this out of just a scrap piece of aluminum, and in a little bit, we're going to take off. I think there's like 9-10 millimeter bolts here, and this cowl will come off, and then you have to, on the top here, you kind of have to, like, you could work a pry tool or a screwdriver, and you kind of get it off this lip, and then this whole piece comes out, and you'll have access to the factory Yamaha plugs that they provide, which, you know, you can use those if you want for certain things, but for light bars or anything serious, communication devices, I wanted to just run my own stuff. I think it's better that way. But we're going to have to take this off to get access to that, and also because I'm going to drill some holes and mount this right here as well. And what this does is there's going to be, let's go back over to the bench here. So what this thing does is we have a relay, and then we have this fuse breaker, and your battery positive will go to this, and then it comes to here, and then this travels over to our relay. And I'll show my little schematic. I'll pop it up on the screen now, and it'll show. I tried to like color in so you could see. This one is 8730, and that one says 86 and 85, and you have to check which relays do what. But basically, when this relay receives a command from when the key gets turned on, it will close this switch, providing power right here on this lug that's going to go to that bus bar. So my idea was I wanted to build something that I could, when my key is off, I wouldn't have to worry about it drawing any power, but when the key is on, I wanted it to only power my accessories. So that's what this fuse does. This fuse is definitely overkill at 120 amps. I probably should have got one way smaller, since this electrical system can never provide that sort of amperage, but I liked how you could mount it nice with this screw up at the top there. So when this is in place, if I were to pop the hood and hit this button, that puts out this lever here. That disconnects all the power to this, which in turn will disconnect all the power to that bus bar. So if you're going to be storing the machine for a couple of weeks and you want to make sure that there's no drain on any of your accessories, all you have to do is push that button and it disconnects the power. This also acts as a 30 amp breaker, so if more power, if there's a surge or something and going through, this will pop, just like a kind of breaker you have in your kitchen or, you know, bathroom or something. So that's what this does. And again, so that's what this device here does essentially. But basically, looking at the bottom of this is the main power, and I did use a pretty thick cable. I made this cable, and this is fairly easy to do. There's going to be a wiring section that talks about how to make your own cables and how to crimp them, and you want to make sure that you get really good mechanical connections when you're doing any type of wiring, because that's just going to help so in the long run. But anyways, so this obviously battery then comes to here. As long as this breaker is closed, there's going to be power to here. That goes to this. And then this number 30 here is what's going to go to the fuse panel. And then this one here, 86, this is like your ignition signal wire. And there's a wire underneath that dash that we're going to take and connect to that. And then 85 here is the main ground. So this will go to that fuse block. And then we're also going to ground that fuse block right to the battery as well. Once this is in place, then what we're going to do is wire up the light switch, and we'll use a rocker switch for that. And let me grab one of those. So here is a Nilight, I believe is the name of the company. Should say it on the switch here. Yep, Nilight. And this is a 5-pole switch, or 5-pin, whatever you want to call it. And this switch will light up a blue color when the RMAX is running. So when you go like that, it's going to turn on the light bar, and this will stay illuminated, the LED light bar part and this top part of the switch. When you turn it off, it still stays illuminated, but it kills the power to the light bar. And then there's a specific way of making sure that you hook these up, because I think there's 2 different ways you can hook these up, but basically it's pretty straightforward, as long as you remember that your grounds are at the top here, and then this goes to your positive on the bus bar. This goes to your light, and then you have to have a jumper going over from this to this that will illuminate the switch. But yeah, it can be kind of confusing until you see how everything works. And you can also test a lot of this stuff with a multimeter and with a power source before you implement it. So, but that's what we're working with here. Like I said, let's get this panel off and start mounting stuff. So you basically just can work your screwdriver underneath this clip, and it should pop. Just be careful, you don't want to break it, obviously. And then this will come free. And then there's hoses behind here. There's some kind of vent lines. So you want to make sure that you take out these vent lines. And they just, let me get the camera in so you can see. So these just pull out like so. And then same for this one. You just push this vent out. And then just pull this one out. And then this whole piece comes right out like so. And then behind here, you can see there's the vent lines that I was talking about. And then this one here. And I believe we're going to be, here's your accessory plugs, I'm pretty sure. And then we're looking for this one, I believe, is what we're going to tap into to hit up our relay. So it's in this like little bag looking thing. And I want to try to make a cable that will accept this, so I'm gonna have to use some kind of male connector to push into that, and then maybe shrink wrap it good. So, but yeah, so here's accessory plugs. I don't know what this one is, but fairly easy to get access here. And then obviously we're gonna have to figure out where we're gonna route our cables to the switch. Real quick, I have my son holding a light on. You can see, let me get these plugs out of the way here. So you can see the light down there. You're going to be able to fish stuff. So you don't, like, I really don't want to have to take apart this dash and stuff for this. So this is where my one rocker switch is going to go. So you don't need to take all this apart unless you really want to. Just to do a couple of switches, you probably can fish things. So I just wanted to mention that. All right, I just wanted to show everybody that this wire is this, it's brown and it's in this like plastic little wrap, but I have my fluke hooked up here, and you can see when I touch it to my ground of the battery, we get voltage. So that is what we're looking for. And let's test it here. Let's turn this off. No. All right, so that's off. This shouldn't read anything. Yep, nothing. So that's a good sign. That is definitely key power on. So I just wanted to show that to you. This brown wire that's in this plastic wrap is key on 12 volt. I realized that this might be the first time people are taking on a task where they need to do custom wiring. So I'm going to show you what I like to do, and that involves tinning wire. So we're going to take this, I think this is like number 10, and it was old battery cables. So what I'm going to do is I cut it and I strip it, and then let me show you what I have here. I got this little solder pot, and you can, if obviously you're probably not going to have something like this, so you're going to have to solder it the old-fashioned way, but I like to tin my ends. So like you can see, like for this cable, we're going to make it look all nice and pretty like this, and I'll show you how I make this. It's important. Listen, you want to make good solid connections. You want to use decent wire, because you don't want your machine to turn into a fireball. And usually the people that rush doing a wiring job and all that stuff, bad things are going to happen. So let's learn how to do it right and go from there. We're going to strip our cable. And I like to strip off a little bit more than what's needed, because then I will just tin more of it. So you can see stripped like maybe an inch off, 3/4 of an inch, and then eventually one end's going to have an end on it like this, and then the other side, this is going to be my main ground, is going to the battery. So I'll have links in the description for all the parts and pieces I use. Yeah, so we're going to use this hammer lug crimper, except I'm not going to beat on it with a hammer. I use my vise. So let's tin our cable here. We're going to tin both ends, that end, this end. So let's do that first, and then we'll go from there. Okay, so we got things good and hot. I'm going to use some flux. And then I'm going to slowly dip it. There you go. Nice end. Do the same thing on the other side. Okay, so now what we need to do is see how our connectors are going to fit. So there's obviously a lot more wire on here. So we'll get our choppers and we'll chop off some. Tiny bit more. This also makes cutting wire a lot easier because it's tinned completely. So now you can see the connector is going to be on there good. And then this thing's kind of self-explanatory, but you basically open this up, put your end in, make sure everything's flush and straight, and then we're going to give it a crush-o on the vise here. So I like to get it just so it's kind of starting, and then I look at it, make sure it's good and straight, and then you crank down on it. And you don't want to go like gorilla style. You can kind of feel it bottom. Once it bottoms, you know that you're done. So then we lift this up. And there you go. Super nice crimp. See, it makes a little plus sign on there. And that's not going anywhere. So now what we're going to do, get our shrink tube. And you can buy these pre-cut lengths online. I'll make sure I post some links down below. So you cut this stuff in half, you know, or close to it. Slide this over. It will actually go on this end. And then cover it up nice. You can see that. And then we'll take old handy dandy blowtorch. You don't want to get too close to it because you can melt it or burn it. Just move it around. Move your flame around. You could also use a heat gun, probably be a little bit safer than an open flame. And there you go. That's all nice and sealed up and it looks good, and it's going to last a long time like that. So, and again, we're going to do the same thing on the other end. So there you go. Got a nice custom cable. You know, we could even, if you want to go an extra mile, I'll show you another little trick here. You can buy, this is too small, but I have a bigger one. You can get this like braided sleeves stuff, and I think this should pass in here. Let's see. So if you want to make it look really fancy, you get this braided stuff, and if you press it, it should open up. Yep. So then you can put your cable in this braided stuff. And this just makes it look, I mean, in my opinion, this just makes it look, you know, that much more factory. And if you really want to be super fancy, you can get more shrink tube, and I think I would have done that probably beforehand. I have to get bigger stuff. Let me see if I can find some bigger stuff. This is 1/2 inch shrink tube. I think this should do it. There you go. That made a nice cable. That's gonna last a long time, and not, you don't have to worry about it rubbing or anything. So we'll do that for the other side. Okay, cool. There's our negative cable. So all right, that turned out pretty good. And that's how I make my cables. Hopefully you learned something. And now we can keep moving on here with the rest of the wiring and stuff. Okay, so a few hours have passed, and I just want to show some temporary wiring, how I got stuff up, and to show you that things are verified. So basically, I have that cover off. I tapped into our switched power here, made all custom stuff for that, and then that's going into our relay, and then we have our breaker here, and all this stuff, it's kind of just temporarily done. I wanted to make sure that everything was going to work before I put everything in for sure. So the only thing, these are like just jumper cables. I made these just to power my switch here for the light bar. So multimeter is being used just to check to make sure nothing's good here, and I don't know if I can do this with one hand. All right, you can see I have that breaker in the open position. So if I go on my bus bar, you can see there's no voltage there. If I close the breaker, that's energizing everything. So if we check the bus bar again, you can see we have 12 volts. So that means that that's working, which is always a positive. And now you can see that our light is illuminated, for the switch here. And like I said, I just have stuff kind of temporarily wired just to check to make sure it works. So when we flip this switch, our light bar kicks on. And that should also stay illuminated. It's hard to see because it's so bright. But okay, so looks like everything's gonna work. Again, just to verify, if we push this, that's gonna kill all the power to this, and it does. So no light bar. And again, if we close that, we have power to the switch again. So there you go. All right, so that's working nicely. Now basically we just have to put everything together, and I will make sure to show my little drawing on the screen a couple of times. I'll probably even post a link to it, but if you follow the instructions on this, then you'll be fine. And again, that's with one of these 5-pin switches. So fairly straightforward. Now it's just a matter of setting up everything and making it look pretty and connecting everything. So we'll do that here next, and then I'll show you the final product. But relatively straightforward. I think the most strenuous part, honestly, is just making the cabling and running everything. It's pretty straightforward as long as you're you know, just taking your time. Let me turn off the power on this thing. So yeah, as long as you just take your time, it's not that big of a deal. So proof of concept, it's always a good idea to check out stuff before you button everything back up. When you buy these Nilight switches, they do come with the appropriate jumpers and stuff you need. You can see how this is jumping the grounds, and then I have this will be going to the bus bar and also the light. So you can do that. Or, I mean, you can run, if you wanted to run separate ones, you could run separate ones to this, but I'm going to try to combine them since I think that makes the most sense. Okay, well, we're basically all done. And the big takeaway with doing wiring is you just got to take your time. It's, for someone like me that's like got OCD and everything else, it's really difficult because I want everything to be very nice and as close to perfect as possible. And it's never going to get that way, but it can be very, very nice looking. So where we're at is this fuse block is all mounted. Everything works nice. I have everything tied, and I have some extra slack just in case I need to do stuff. Everything's tied down. This is the main feeder for my light bar, and that goes through, and I was able to, I still have this panel off, but I was able to tuck it. I'll be able to tuck it through here, but there is room here where you can put stuff. But I think this is where that key switch goes, so if you ever get the speed limiter, you might not want to pass wires through that. And then, let's see, then we got the negative going to this guy here, the relay, and everything's nice and shrink tubed, and yeah, everything's got heat shrink on it. And then of course the sleeve makes a big difference. Looks better than just like wires laying everywhere, and this will offer you know, better wear resistance. So, and I managed to pop a small 3/8 inch hole for the ignition wire. So this one right here, when you flip the switch, this energizes everything. If I were to do anything different, I probably would maybe do something different with this feeder cable that goes to the breaker, but once this is in place here, it's still going to be fine. So I'm not too worried about that. But and everything's nice and tight here. I was able to use the existing bolts. I tightened everything down good. And yeah, everything's, you know, routed fairly nice. Here's the big feeder cable from the relay that goes into here in the positive. So yeah, so if we, just before I button everything back up here, because I don't want to bore you, but if we flip that, that's going to energize all this. So as soon as we hit the ignition key, we should get yeah, so there you go. So switch is illuminated, and if we hit this, there we go, our light bar's working. So turn that off. So yeah, so that works pretty good. You just got to take your time. Pro tip, you can use a piece of Romex. It's kind of stiff, or like a coat hanger. So if you want to pass your cables through here, you can pop the little blank, the rubber blank thing, pull that out, and then shove this through here, and this will allow you to pass wires back and forth. Just use a little bit of painter's tape, and that way you don't have to like disassemble the dash and stuff. At least that worked for me. I mean, if you're going to be putting a lot of switches in, it might be a good idea to take the dash apart, but I figured this worked fine. So yeah, this is not a difficult job to do. It just takes time. So the other thing that I wanted to show is well, you can can you see these little holes here that are like pre-drilled? So I didn't realize this, but on the back they have extra plastic when they were molding this panel. So if you want, you could run self-tappers into here, and you don't need to do a plate like this. But I figured I made the plate, and it's aluminum. I'm not too concerned about corrosion or whatever, so I just used it. I nut and bolted it on the back, and I used little nylon washers as well to get some extra sponginess on there, so it's kind of like a lock washer. But so you can do that if you want to put your breaker and your relay. You can just screw them right into this plastic panel. You don't have to worry about making what I did. So all right, well, I'm gonna put this thing back together, and maybe we'll, I don't know, I guess we can maybe take it outside and see what it looks like. Okay, you probably can't even see me, it's so dark out, but that's what it looks like with, that's high, low, it's high, light bar. Wow, that's, I might have to adjust a little bit since looks like the spot is right in the middle, but that's, wow, that is a huge difference. Yeah, that's definitely gonna help. Yeah, words cannot accurately describe how bright that is. Might as well drive around and make the neighbors angry, but yeah, I think it just needs a little bit of adjustment. I think I'm gonna move it up a little bit. Wow, very impressive. Rigid horse, jeez. Rigid horse 42-inch LED. I'll get links in the description or whatever. So yeah, wow, huge difference. Definitely gets you a light bar if you're trail riding and stuff. I mean, you need to be able to see what the hell you're doing, even if it's like, you don't plan on riding at night or something, but you get stuck and you're coming home at dark. You need to have lights on, so, or you need to have good bright lights so you can see. Anyways, thanks for following along. 2 thumbs up if I could do it with this light bar. It's really nice, very bright. So that's how you wire a LED light bar. If you liked it, hit the thumbs up, maybe subscribe, see if I can get a few more subscribers in about 100 years, maybe. That'd be cool. So okay, it's freezing and I'm going inside. I'll see you guys later. Bye. Okay, bonus video. See if the the dog seems lit. Hope she's not going blind.